Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie, and I'm on the adult reference team here at the library. We thank you all for coming to tonight's special Valentine's Day inspired cook-along with culinary arts instructor and natural food chef Lisa Núñez-Hancock. Chef Lisa will be walking us through how to make a decadent and surprisingly healthy chocolate tart, while also filling us in on the fascinating history of chocolate and the nutritional benefits of a little chocolate in our lives. At the end of this workshop, we'll have a Q&A with Chef Lisa, where she'll be available to answer any questions you may have. But if you miss anything or need clarification as she's walking us through the recipe, you can type your question in the chat feature and we'll read it off to her. Otherwise, please hold on to any of your questions until the end. So we're so grateful to have Chef Lisa here this evening. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Katie. And I want to welcome everyone and thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us for this cook-along virtual workshop. Once again, my name is Lisa Núñez-Hancock, and I'm a culinary arts instructor and natural food chef, as Katie mentioned. And I've been teaching healthy cooking classes for 14 years to children, adults, and families through my You Are What You Eat program. I would like to thank Refugio Rivera, Chelsea Hernandez Garcia, and Katie Olding, and the staff at the Napa County Library for their help in making these workshops possible. As Katie mentioned, we would like to save all of your questions for the end of our workshop when we do our Q&A. But remember, you can put urgent questions in the chat, and the staff will try to help us. So today we're doing a cook-along, which means many of you out there at home will be making our recipe in real time along with me. And I really love this idea. Today we're making a delicious plant-based dessert to celebrate Valentine's Day. And I think of Valentine's Day, today is Thursday, and it's coming up this Sunday. So it's really Valentine's Day weekend, and we're starting it tonight. It's an easy and fun recipe to break the monotony of winter. It's raining up here where we all are sending our Zoom show from. And it's also a great recipe for our stay-at-home lifestyles during the pandemic. We will be making a chocolate and raspberry tart that's decadent and perfect for Valentine's Day, and it's a healthy alternative dessert. So, as many of you know, not all chocolate is healthy. And of course, Snickers bars and that box of Valentine's chocolates with all the different fillings, and chocolate that contains white sugar, milk, cream, and fillers is really not healthy. Our recipe today uses dark chocolate in the form of cocoa powder. And I want to start, while many of you out there are getting all of your ingredients together and your equipment, I want to start by talking about the health benefits of dark chocolate. Dark chocolate is high in antioxidants and flavonoids, which fight disease-causing free radicals. And studies have shown that dark chocolate that is 70% cacao is good for heart health as well. And theobromine is the chemical in cacao that acts as a vasodilator, meaning it relaxes muscles. And the benefits of theobromine include enhanced blood flow and oxygenation to the brain. So we can all use a little bit more of that. Cacao also supplies the body with serotonin. and aids the body in producing its own natural serotonin. And that is why chocolate has a reputation of being the feel-good food. And serotonin is well known for its ability to combat stress and improve our mood and promote feelings of comfort, contentment, happiness, and relaxation and well-being. And we can certainly all benefit from all of those things during the pandemic. So a little dark chocolate in your life now and then is a great way to get more antioxidants into our diets, boost our moods, while giving ourselves a healthy treat. Now, a normal chocolate tart would have butter, cream, possibly eggs, refined white sugar, along with the chocolate. If you're trying to eliminate dairy from your diet, this is a good recipe. And I created this recipe for a very dear friend who wanted to be vegan. And so I had to kind of figure out and search the internet, how can I make a delicious decadent chocolate tart without dairy, and that was plant-based. And so that was how this recipe kind of came about. Can we please put up the two recipes? So this chocolate tart comes in, it's a two-part, and so it's the crust and the filling. And so for those of you out there that are cooking along, we are going to start with the crust. And so if we could take the filling ingredients down, and I am going to read to you the crust ingredients and talk a little bit about it. This recipe will make an 8 or 9 inch tart or pie shell. And the crust starts with 2.5 cups of chocolate graham cracker crumbs, 2 tablespoons of agave syrup, and you can also replace that with either date syrup, which I'll show you in a second, maple syrup, or honey, and 2 teaspoons of salt, and then 2 tablespoons of coconut oil melted. And so the coconut oil is replacing the butter that would naturally be in the graham cracker crust. You could also use olive oil. And the difference in olive oil is normally in this crust, there is nothing that needs to be baked, but we do blind bake it, which means we will put it into the oven for 6 to 8 minutes in order for it to firm up, and it will just make a nicer sliced pieces. Because the coconut oil, which is liquid when we put it in, will then solidify, and it will firm the whole thing. It sort of just congeals the whole thing. So that said, can you come back to me? Could we take the recipes down? Thank you. Thank you. Hi. So I wanted to show you, I have 2 graham cracker options. And one is, they both are chocolate. One is the Nabisco Honey Made. And the one that I will be using today is Annie's, and it's the organic bunny grahams. And these are gluten-free. Both of these are very easy to get, but the difference will be that the Nabisco ones have sugar on them, and they are kind of square. And the bunny grams are already in little pieces. Now, there are two ways. You can do them in your food processor by just putting the graham crackers, whether it's the squares or these little pieces of bunny grams, in your food processor, or you can do it. I will show you a method, because sometimes it's like, I don't feel like getting that food processor out, and then it's like a lot of work to clean it. So a very simple method is to put them in a Ziploc bag. And I'm going to tilt down. Please let me know that you can see what I'm doing. And I've got my bunny grams pieces, or I would break up the pieces, the square crackers, and then I just crush them with a rolling pin. And what you're looking for is you want to get them to have a bit of a sand-like texture so that they're pretty much broken up. And we are going to need, for your recipe, if you're cooking out there, 2.5 cups. Now, as you notice, I'm not putting that much in because I already made my crust. So I am just going to demo the technique. So there I have my graham cracker crumbs, and I already made some in my little mini Cuisinart. And so I'll combine those in a bowl. So I'm going to put my graham cracker crumbs. So remember, you're putting 2.5 cups of your chocolate graham cracker crumbs into a bowl. And then we are going to add a little salt. And you know, if you want a low sodium diet, I would take the salt out, but chocolate and salt really love each other. So we do add a little bit of salt in this recipe. And then I want to talk about the sweetener. So I have a number of different sweeteners. This recipe, I like to use agave syrup, but you could use maple syrup. You could use honey. If you wanted to make it vegan, you would go with the maple syrup, the agave syrup, or the date syrup. And today I am going to use the date syrup. And so if you are out there making yours, you're going to use 2 tablespoons of the agave syrup. I'm going to use slightly less because I'm demoing. And then the next ingredient that you're going to want to add is the coconut oil. And as I said, you could use olive oil. But as in all graham cracker crusts, you do need a little fat, and that sort of pulls the mixture together. And so we're going to, you're out there, you're going to be putting in 2 tablespoons. And I'm going to put slightly less. And then you're going to want to stir it with a spoon or fork. So how's everybody doing out there who's cooking along with us? Do we have any questions?
Lisa, we had a question. I think you might have just answered it. The question was, is there an alternative to coconut oil?
Olive oil. Definitely olive oil.
Can you use avocado oil too if you wanted to?
Definitely use avocado oil. Great. Yes. If you're using the olive oil or the avocado oil, I would highly recommend the baking of it. And so I would also say, if you're cooking out there, please preheat your oven to 350 degrees. So what the texture that we are trying to achieve here is like wet sand. And it might be a little less, fine than sand, and that's okay. But you're going for a very damp sand. So I have a pie tin here, and I want to show you. Can everybody see that? See my workspace?
I can see it just fine.
Great. So this is a pie tin. You can use a Tart tin, and I will show you the blind baked one. And then you will pour or spoon your crust into your tin. And then the technique, it's a bit like tamping. And I use a glass, just a drinking glass, and I put a tiny bit of coconut oil or olive oil on the bottom, and that helps it not stick to the glass. And then you want to tamp it down, and you want to make sure that you get it into the corners, and you might have to do that with your hand. And you want to get some edges. You want to get a sort of rim on your crust. And you may need to do the rim part with your fingers. You can also put a little coconut oil on your fingers, and that helps. Okay. And this is a completely non-bake recipe, but as I said, putting it in the oven, your crust for 6 to 8 minutes will help greatly. It will help greatly firm it. And so this is the one that I blind baked. And so it was the same technique, it's just a different type of tart pan. And I made the same mixture. I also used the date syrup on this one. And then I baked it in the oven for about 6 to 8 minutes. And because the crackers are such a dark brown, you really have to carefully watch it so that it doesn't burn, because you really can't tell. You can tell by the smell, it will get kind of toasty. So we have that blind baked. So you are probably putting your crusts hopefully in the oven in a couple of minutes. And I've got to grab a napkin because I have sticky fingers. So we're going to I'm going to check in again. Are there any questions for people who are cooking along with us?
I had one back to the types of oils that you could use in place of different types of oils. Can you also use like melted earth balance spread?
Sure, definitely. Yes. Yes, you can.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. And it's very, very helpful to melt it because it will just give it the right texture to be able to mold it well in your tart pan. So while those of you out there who are now blind baking your crusts in the oven at 350 degrees for 6 to 8 minutes, I want to talk a little bit about the history of chocolate because I find it really fascinating. And you know, I teach a chocolate class for children, and one of my favorite parts is introducing them to the history of chocolate. And so chocolate has, cacao has been around from pre-Olmec, Aztec, and Mayan times in Mesoamerica, which is now Mexico. And researchers believe that a cacao drink was used in religious and spiritual rituals, and that it was considered a medicinal drink by these Mesoamerican peoples. The Aztecs believed that the cacao seeds were a gift from the god Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent and god of wisdom, and that cacao seeds became so valuable in Aztec society that they were used as currency. I have some pictures and I want to show you. This is the cacao hanging from the tree, the cacao pod. And here I have a cacao pod that has been opened, and you see the seeds. And then in this, I hope everyone can see it, we have the cacao seeds over here, and then we have the mixture heated up and breaking down. So the Mayan people left surviving writings in their codices about cacao, which confirm the identification of the drink with their gods. And we even have archaeological records of the recipe that the Mayan peoples used to make their cacao beverages. They would mix the roasted cacao seeds, which they turned into a paste, which is probably similar to this mixture. And they then added water, ground chili peppers, cornmeal, and they would pass it from vessel to vessel until it was frothy. And it's not unlike, it creates a little foam on the top, and it's not unlike having whipped cream on your hot chocolate. A big difference between the way that these ancient peoples enjoy their chocolate and the way we do is that they drank their cacao chocolate bitter and spicy with chilies, and with no refined sugar or dairy. The Aztecs, we think, may have added honey to their cacao. With the conquest of the New World, cacao would make its way to Europe. And once it made its way to Europe, it started this transformation. Sweeteners in the form of honey first and later sugar were added, and it became rebranded, so to speak, and renamed chocolate in Europe. And as the drink was first popular among the Spanish nobility in the 16th and 17th centuries, They made it a very trendy beverage, and it was considered a luxury item, chocolate was, and its popularity spread across Europe. Industrialization, factories, and mass production in the 19th century brought chocolate to a wider audience. And with the appearance of the first chocolate bar in 1847. Today, political issues around chocolate include free trade. And so very briefly, I just want to tell you that free trade chocolate is an agricultural product harvested from the cacao tree using a certified process which is followed by cocoa farmers, buyers, and chocolate manufacturers. And it's designed to create sustainable incomes for farmers and their families. And the free trade model promotes farmer organization, which can lead to the formation of cooperatives and associations. And this can help farmer groups negotiate for better prices and to stabilize chocolate prices globally. So 2 brands of chocolate and cocoa powder that maintain free trade practices are Tart, and that's spelled Guittard, and Green and Black, and they both make organic cocoa powder. Now, if you're interested in reading more about the really fascinating story of chocolate, the Napa Library can help you get 2 books. One is The True History of Chocolate by Sophie and Michael Coe. And Michael Coe was one of my archaeological professors at a point in my life. And another book is Chocolate, Pathway to the Gods, The Sacred Realm of Chocolate in Mesoamerica by Meredith Dries and Sharon Greenhill from the University of Arizona Press. And they're both really great books, and chocolate's a fun thing to read about. So hopefully those folks that are cooking along with us have their crusts baked, and their crusts are cooling, and we're going to move on to the filling. So could we please get the filling ingredients? Yes, so we have the filling ingredients and recipe. And I want to read down the recipe of the filling ingredients because they are very interesting. So as I mentioned, where traditional chocolate tart recipes might have butter, cream, eggs, what we have is 2 medium avocados, ripe. And I am going to show you, I've got my avocados here. It's very, very important that your avocado for this recipe is ripe and that it is creamy and bright green. I will show this to you all in a second. Then we will need a 1/2 cup of raw cashews soaked in cold water overnight. And I'll go into that a little bit more. 5 tablespoons of agave syrup. And also you can substitute the maple syrup, honey, or the date syrup. Vanilla extract, 1 teaspoon, and 2 tablespoons of the melted coconut oil. You could use olive oil, you could use Earth Balance, and then 1/2 cup of dark cocoa powder and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then we've got fresh raspberries for the topping. So could we take the filling recipe down? Great. And could we come back to me?
It's back to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I can't always tell. Thanks. Now I see my little illuminated box. So, avocado in this recipe may sound like a kind of strange ingredient, but I assure you, it gives the tart this wonderful, creamy texture and this neutral flavor, and it allows the complexity of the dark chocolate to shine through. In this recipe, it's very important that your avocados are at their peak of ripeness. It's essential to the texture and the flavor that the avocado is soft, creamy, and bright green inside. I hope you can all see this just extraordinarily beautiful color. And so we are going to scoop the avocado. And so you may ask, why avocados? Avocados provide the fat in this recipe, and but it's a healthy fat. So avocados are packed with vitamins B2, B3, and minerals folate, magnesium, and potassium. They contain heart-healthy monounsaturated fats. And as I move, I want to show you this technique. Many of you know it, but some of you may not, where you use your knife to get the pit out. And so that monounsaturated fat reduces cholesterol and it fights against heart disease. So you're going to be putting 2 ripe avocado into your processor. Now you're going to need to use a blender or a food processor. It's really important because you want to get a very thick and creamy consistency to your filling. Now, cashews, we'll move on to cashews. And I want to talk a little bit about the health properties of cashews. So cashews are low in sugar, rich in fiber. They have heart-healthy fats like avocado, and they are a plant protein. They're also a good source of copper, magnesium, and manganese. Nutrients important for energy production, brain health, immunity, which we need now to boost our immune systems, and bone health. The cashews need to be soaked in a liquid, water. I soaked mine in water or the liquid of your choice. And I'll talk about that in a second, for at least an hour, and preferably overnight. And soaking them will get them soft and mushy. Now, I want to talk about the liquid and something that I just discovered today. So I woke up early this morning and I was like, oh no, I forgot to soak the cashew nuts last night. So I did pour hot water, and that helped break them down because you want them to have a very creamy consistency. So I will say that if you're going to soak them for just 1 hour, I would put boiling water on them. Now, once you have your soaked cashews, you're going to want to drain the liquid off, but you want to reserve it to the side because you may need it to loosen your mixture. Now, I would suggest there's a lot of different things you can do with the liquid. It doesn't have to be water. It can be anything from coffee that will give you a nice mocha flavor. You could try cream soda if you wanted to kind of have a little bit more of a chocolate with the vanilla highlights. You could use brandy. I would suggest a liquid that pairs well with chocolate and doesn't overpower it, but complements it. And one example, we're doing a raspberry dark chocolate tart because I love the pairing of raspberry. And I also think the final presentation with the raspberries, you'll see, looks really lovely for Valentine's Day, the red. But you could make this recipe by by soaking your cashew nuts in a half a cup of orange, or half of the liquid amount of orange juice, and Grand Marnier, which is an orange flavored liqueur, or a Cointreau. And then instead of the raspberries, do an orange zest. And chocolate and orange flavors pair really, really well together. So we have our cooled tart shell, and we've got our avocado in here, and I am going to put some of, I'm going to put some of the cashews in here. And you want to add a little bit of the liquid in at a time. You don't want to add all of it. So remember, this could be coffee. It could be a number of different things. It could be coconut water too. Now it's going to get loud because I'm going to turn on my Cuisinart. So bear with me just a moment. Katie, do you want to see if we have any questions while I'm doing this?
Yeah, sure. Don't have any just yet, but I will let you know if we get some more. Feel free to enter them in the chat.
Okay, that's working really well. And remember, you can do this in a blender as well. So I'm going to add in the rest of the cashews. And I'm going to hold off on the liquid for a moment because I want to just make sure the consistency is right. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of the agave syrup. I'm going to, I think I'm going to use the date syrup again. And you can put that right into your blender jar or your Cuisinart container. And I want to say that you can adjust the sweetness. You may want to dial the sweetness back, or you may want to make it a little bit sweeter. And if you are using honey, do remember that honey is much sweeter than the agave syrup, than the maple syrup, and that the date syrup that I'm using has a kind of deeper, richer molasses taste to it, flavor to it.
We had someone say that they added bourbon.
Yes, yes, that's a bourbon and chocolate go really, really well together. So now I am going to add just a half a teaspoon of salt and something. Now, of course, as I said with the crust, you can also eliminate the salt if you are trying to lower your sodium. The other interesting thing is, you know, you can adjust this for any of your dietary needs. If you can't eat coconut because of allergies, you can swap out for olive oil. So it's a very, very adaptable recipe to different substitutions. And now I have my vanilla extract, and I would use a good vanilla extract in this recipe because it will nicely complement the chocolate. So I think I have my avocados, I have my soaked cashews, I have my agave syrup, date syrup, I have my vanilla extract, and now I'm going to add in the coconut oil. Remember, this could be olive oil. I'm just shaking out the date syrup that's stuck on my spoon. Okay. And if you wanted to, you could throw some raspberries in there and have them mixed up, or I'll show you in a second another way we can add raspberries other than the garnish. So once again, I'm gonna make a lot of noise. Okay. So now, once we have a really nice mixture, it's the time to add the chocolate. So this actually kind of looks like guacamole. And now I am going to add in the cocoa powder. And with the cocoa powder, you're going to notice that it clumps a little bit together. So I'm going to use a spoon to break these clumps up a little bit. Because what I don't want to have, you could also use a sieve. What I don't want are little pockets in my tart of clumped chocolate, clumped cocoa powder. But we're going to put in 1/2 cup. Do we have any questions or anybody?
Not just yet, but I'm keeping a lookout.
And remember, you've got that reserved liquid, but you don't want your mixture to be too runny.
Dania is wondering if we can put even more bourbon.
Well, you don't, as I said, you don't want to have your filling be too runny. So I recommend putting a tiny bit of your reserved liquid, and then once you put the cocoa powder, you're going to want you want your mixture to be fairly thick. If it's too runny, it's not going to set up. And another technique you could use is that you could, for instance, if you're using bourbon or a Grand Marnier or some type of liqueur, you could take your cocoa powder with a little bit of the liquid and make what's called a slurry, and then add that in. But something that you want to really make sure is that you don't thin out your filling too much. So to just run down the list, we've got the 2 medium avocados, 1/2 cup of the raw cashews that we have soaked. We've got the 5 tablespoons of agave syrup, and which you can adjust that to your palate and your desire for sweetness. And then we have the vanilla extract, the coconut oil, the dark cocoa, and a little salt, the half a teaspoon. So I'm going to put this back on my food processor. Okay. And as you can see, it is now, I'll hold it up, has turned into this like really dark, rich, thick chocolate mixture. So what I am going to do is carefully now, with a spoon, I am going to with a spoon, I'm going to kind of scoop my filling out into my blind baked tart shell. How's that? Can everybody see?
Looks perfect.
Okay. And this is just a decadent double chocolate, the crust, and then the filling. But do you see the consistency? You want a consistency that is fairly thick. You don't want it to be too runny, or else it just won't set up. And I have a little mini one that I'm going to show you. And you may have to take your blender blades apart to get all this goodness. I have this, my food processor blade, and I don't want to drop it in the tart. I'm going to take a little bit of that and do this one. And then you can use an offset spatula or a little spatula like that. But I'm just going to use the spoon. And you can make it very even, or you could make it very smooth and even, or you could swirl it. You want to bring it out to the edges. And you want to kind of make sure that it's nice and level so that your pieces are nice and uniform. Okay, so right now we have our two tarts. Well, we have this tart, and then I made a little mini. And refrigerating is very important. it will firm up both the crust and the filling so that your tart holds together and is easy to cut and creates a nice, clean cut lines and presentation on the plate. And the final, so I would refrigerate this for a few hours and preferably overnight. And when I am ready to serve, I would begin to decorate it. And tonight I am going to decorate it with the fresh raspberries. And I'm going to try to create a little heart with the raspberries for Valentine's Day. And as I said, you could also put some raspberries into your food processor along with the chocolate, or you could also put the raspberries into the filling whole. But I happen to like to, for Valentine's Day, to create a little heart. And they'll be easier to place once your tart is firm. So hopefully we can see that. Does that look like a heart to you all? Now, something that I like to do, and this is totally optional, is when the tart is chilled, and I would say you could chill it overnight or a couple of hours at least in the refrigerator, is because chocolate loves salt and it brings out its flavor. I would just add a tiny bit of fleur de sel, a kind of coarse salt, just a little bit. And that will just bring out the flavors. Okay. So there we have it. We have our chocolate and raspberry tart for Valentine's Day. Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day. And so I'm going to move and take any questions that you all have.
All right, so while she's moving, if anybody has any questions, please enter them in the chat and I will read them off to Lisa. And if anyone's willing to show their masterpiece, that would be wonderful.
And I just want to say again, what beautiful graphics Chelsea did on the bookmarkers. And Katie, is there a place where they might be able to pick these up at the library, do you think?
Yeah, they always could if they wanted to. We could print them out for people. Right now, with everything, we have most things virtually, but if requested, we could definitely have them available.
Yeah, she did such a beautiful job with the graphics, and they're sort of Art Deco candy bars, and they're really beautiful.
Okay, so let's see. I've got a question. How do you know if an avocado is ripe?
So let me grab my avocado, another avocado. So here you've got your avocado, and you're at the grocery store. Now, I recommend planning ahead when you're buying avocados, no matter what you're making, if you're making this tart, if you're making guacamole. I would get one that is firm, bring it home, leave it on the counter, and kind of just check it by holding it and pressing it with the inside of your thumb. And when it starts to feel not mushy, like it's not gonna, you can't squish it, but it's still firm, but it has some yield, that, and it will also turn from a sort of dark green, it begins to get sort of a blackish hue on it. That's when your avocado is ripe. And I would recommend, you can also, if it starts to get too ripe and you're not ready to use it yet, and maybe you're 2 days away from using it, you can pop it in the refrigerator, but don't keep them in the they won't ripen in the refrigerator.
Great, thank you. So is honey considered vegan?
No, honey is not considered vegan. So if you are a vegan and you want to make this recipe, definitely go with the agave syrup or the date syrup.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Can you use something other than cashews?
You know, that's a very, very good question. Thanks for asking it. I was thinking about that as I was creating this recipe, and cashews are really interesting because of their texture. You know, I was thinking, wow, could you make this recipe using peanuts? Which you probably could. But something like a walnut, I don't think it's going to work as well, because the walnut has a kind of a slight papery shell on it, not exactly a shell, but a skin, a papery skin. And I think that that is going to not give you this like very creamy textured, that, you know, this creamy texture that the cashew would. But I would like to say that you don't have to use raw cashews. You could use the roasted. Now, if they're roasted and salted, I would completely omit the salt, because you just don't want to oversalt this recipe.
Great, okay.
So the answer to that question is, you could try it with peanuts, but the cashews have a lot of nice plant protein flesh, and they just get really creamy when they're when you blend them.
All right. Let's see. Can you make different types of crusts, like one that's more of a dough?
Definitely, definitely. You could do a regular pie crust, pâté brisé. I have not tried, and that it's interesting, I have not tried using an alternative to butter in making a flour-based crust. But I'm sure that you could experiment with something like Earth Balance. But I am not sure whether coconut oil or olive oil would work. You might get something more like a a pizza dough if you used olive oil. But that's a very good question.
All right, let's see.
And if you feel really like you don't want to do the crust, you can buy graham cracker crusts already made. They're available in the stores.
Okay, so I don't see any other questions unless anyone else has any more burning questions to add.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And I want to wish you a really happy Valentine's Day. I have a little chocolate joke. Why did the donut go to the dentist? He wanted to get a chocolate filling. So happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Thank you, everyone at the Napa Library, for all your help. I love doing these. And just have a wonderful holiday weekend. It's a long weekend, and we started it tonight.
Aw. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for walking us through this recipe and getting us in the Valentine spirit. And thank you to everyone who has joined us and followed along. Tonight's event has been recorded and we will upload it to Napa Library's YouTube channel by this weekend. So if you'd like to go back and watch it again, please do. In terms of other events, tomorrow we're doing Art in the Library at 6:30, featuring photographer Christine Hoon. So we'd also love to see you all there. And all of our event information, like events like tonight, you can find on Napa Library's website, napalibrary.org, on our event page, and on our social media pages. So once again, thank you so much, Chef Lisa. This was really fun. And thank you everyone who celebrated Valentine's Day with us.
Thank you.